For years, doctors told arthritis patients to take it easy, rest those joints, avoid putting stress on them. But a groundbreaking study published just 3 months ago in the Journal of Rheumatology is making physicians around the world completely rethink this advice. This research followed over 12,000 participants with osteoarthritis for 5 years, and what they discovered shocked even the lead researchers. The people who followed the traditional go easy approach, they experienced more pain, more joint deterioration, and more mobility loss than those who did something completely different. Something that goes against everything we've been telling patients for decades. I'm Dr. Sarah Mitchell, and I've been treating arthritis patients for over 20 years. I've seen countless people suffer needlessly because they followed outdated advice. The exercise that works best for arthritis after 60 isn't what you think. It's not gentle stretching. It's not swimming, though that helps, and it's definitely not just walking around the block. What this new research reveals will change how you approach your arthritis management forever. But before I tell you exactly what this exercise is and why it works so powerfully, you need to understand why the old advice was not just wrong, but potentially harmful. And for that, I need to tell you about Margaret. Margaret was 63 when she first came to my office. She had been a tennis player her whole life, played 3 times a week, loved the social aspect of it, loved the competition. But about a year before I met her, she started getting knee pain. Nothing terrible at first, just some stiffness in the mornings, a little ache after playing. She went to her doctor, got x-rays, and was diagnosed with moderate osteoarthritis in both knees. Her doctor at the time told her exactly what most doctors would have said back then. He said, "Margaret, your tennis days are over. You need to protect those joints now. Switch to something gentler. Maybe try some water aerobics or gentle yoga." Margaret was devastated, but she's a rule follower. She stopped playing tennis immediately. She joined a water aerobics class at the local community center. She did gentle stretches every morning, like her doctor recommended. She bought a stationary bike and pedaled slowly for 20 minutes a day, keeping the resistance low so she wouldn't stress her joints. She did everything right according to the conventional wisdom at that time. 6 months later, she came back for a follow-up. I'll never forget the look on her face when she sat down in my office. She said, "Dr. Mitchell, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm getting worse, not better. My knees hurt more now than they did when I was still playing tennis. I can barely get up from a chair without wincing. What am I doing wrong?" We did new x-rays, and I had to give her news that broke my heart. Her arthritis had progressed significantly in just 6 months. The cartilage degradation had accelerated. Her joint space was narrowing faster than I would have expected, and here's what really got to me. Her muscle mass around her knees had decreased dramatically. Her quadriceps, which are crucial for supporting and stabilizing the knee joint, had atrophied. She had followed doctor's orders perfectly, and she was worse off because of it. That was 5 years ago, and it was cases like Margaret's that made me start questioning the standard approach to arthritis management. I started digging into the research, looking at the latest studies, attending conferences focused on musculoskeletal health in aging populations, and what I discovered changed everything about how I treat arthritis patients. Now, I want you to think about something for a moment. Have you been told to take it easy on your joints? Have you avoided certain activities because you were afraid they'd make your arthritis worse? If so, I want you to comment below and tell me what activity you gave up. Was it tennis like Margaret, golf, dancing, gardening? I read every single comment and I want to know your story. Here's what you need to understand about arthritis and why the old advice was so fundamentally flawed. Your joints are not like the wheels on a car that wear out from too much use. That's the analogy doctors use to give patients, and it's completely wrong. Your joints are living tissue. They respond to stress. They adapt. They get stronger or weaker based on how you use them. When you have osteoarthritis, what's happening is that the cartilage, that smooth cushioning tissue that covers the ends of your bones, is breaking down. Now, here's what most people don't know. Cartilage doesn't have its own blood supply. It gets its nutrients through a process called diffusion. Think of cartilage like a sponge. When you compress it, fluid with waste products squeezes out. When you release the pressure, fresh fluid with nutrients flows back in. This pumping action is how cartilage stays healthy and repairs itself. When you stop moving, when you protect your joints too much, you're essentially starving your cartilage. You're cutting off its nutrient supply. The cartilage literally starts to die faster because it's not getting the mechanical stimulation it needs to trigger that nutrient exchange. It's like a plant without water. No matter how carefully you protect it, it's going to wither. But there's more. The muscles around your joints are absolutely critical. Your quadriceps, for example, absorb up to 70% of the force that goes through your knee when you walk or climb stairs. When those muscles are strong, they're protecting your joint with every single step you take. When those muscles are weak, all that force goes directly into the joint, directly into that already damaged cartilage, accelerating the deterioration. And here's the thing that really makes me frustrated with the old take it easy approach. Muscle atrophy happens fast in people over 60. You can lose up to 8% of your muscle mass per decade after age 60 if you're not actively working against it. So when doctors told people like Margaret to stop their vigorous activities and switch to gentle movement, they were essentially putting those patients on a fast track to muscle loss, which meant more stress on the joints, which meant faster arthritis progression. They had it completely backwards. There's also an inflammatory component that most people don't understand. When you have arthritis, there's chronic low-grade inflammation in your joints, and exercise, the right kind of exercise, actually reduces inflammation. It triggers the release of anti-inflammatory molecules called myokines from your muscles. These myokines travel through your bloodstream and actively calm down the inflammatory processes in your joints. But gentle, easy movement doesn't produce enough myokines to make a significant difference. You need a certain intensity level to trigger that anti-inflammatory response. So what's the exercise that this new research shows is most effective for arthritis after 60? What did Margaret switch to that changed everything for her? It's resistance training, strength training, lifting weights. I can already hear some of you thinking, wait, isn't that going to make my arthritis worse? Won't that damage my joints even more? This is exactly the misconception that the new research shatters. The Journal of Rheumatology study I mentioned at the beginning followed 12,347 people with knee osteoarthritis. They divided them into groups based on their exercise habits. The group that did regular resistance training, twice a week, moderate to high intensity, had the best outcomes across every single metric they measured. After 5 years, the resistance training group had less pain, better physical function, slower cartilage degradation, and significantly better quality of life compared to those who did only low-impact gentle exercise or those who were sedentary. The researchers used MRI imaging to actually measure cartilage thickness, and they found that the resistance training group had less cartilage loss over the 5-year period. The very thing people were afraid would damage their joints was actually protecting them. The key findings were remarkable. People who did resistance training had a 43% reduction in arthritis pain compared to baseline. Their muscle mass around affected joints increased by an average of 18%. Their physical function scores improved by 37%. And here's what really matters to most people: their ability to do daily activities without pain, things like climbing stairs, getting in and out of cars, picking up grandchildren, all improved dramatically. Another study published in the Annals of Physical and Rehabilitation Medicine looked specifically at people over 65 with hip and knee arthritis. They found that those who did progressive resistance training, meaning they gradually increased the weight they were lifting over time, had better outcomes than those who did aquatic therapy, which has long been considered the gold standard for arthritis exercise. The resistance training group could reduce their pain medication usage by an average of 60%, while the aquatic therapy group reduced medication by only 23%. Let me tell you what happened with Margaret once I explained all of this to her. At first, she was skeptical. She said, "Dr. Mitchell, I can barely walk upstairs without my knees hurting. You want me to lift weights?" But I explained it carefully. We started very slowly, very methodically. I referred her to a physical therapist who specializes in working with older adults with arthritis. Margaret started with bodyweight exercises and very light resistance bands, leg extensions, leg curls, step-ups, squats using a chair for support. The physical therapist taught her proper form, made sure she wasn't doing anything that would cause damage. After the first session, Margaret was nervous. She said her knees felt a little sore the next day, not the sharp pain she was used to, but a different kind of discomfort. I told her, "That's your muscles responding. That's adaptation. That soreness should go away in a few days." And it did. By the third week, she wasn't getting sore anymore. By the sixth week, she was adding actual weights to her exercises. By 3 months, she was leg pressing 70 pounds and doing Bulgarian split squats with dumbbells. And her pain? It was cut in half. She could climb stairs normally again. She could garden for hours without that deep ache in her knees afterwards. But here's the best part of Margaret's story. After 6 months of consistent resistance training, she asked her physical therapist if she could try playing tennis again. We did new x-rays before giving her the green light. Her joint space hadn't gotten worse. If anything, the inflammation markers in her blood work had improved. She started playing tennis again, just once a week at first, then twice a week. It's been 4 years now, and Margaret plays tennis 3 times a week again. She still does her resistance training twice a week religiously. Her arthritis hasn't disappeared, but it's not progressing the way it was when she was trying to protect her joints. She's living her life instead of being limited by her diagnosis. Let me share another case that illustrates a different aspect of this. Robert was 67, retired firefighter, had severe arthritis in his hips. He'd been told he was heading for hip replacement surgery within a year or two. Robert was barely walking when he came to me. He shuffled, couldn't extend his hips fully, had constant pain. His doctor had told him to rest, use a cane, avoid any strenuous activity until his surgery. Robert didn't want surgery if he could avoid it. I laid out the resistance training approach, and he was all in. This is a guy who had carried people out of burning buildings. He wasn't afraid of hard work. We started him with exercises focused on hip strength, clamshells with resistance bands, lateral leg raises, hip bridges, single leg deadlifts with very light weight. Within 8 weeks, Robert was walking normally again. No shuffle, full hip extension. His pain had decreased by about 60%. After 6 months, we did new x-rays and had an orthopedic surgeon review them. The surgeon said, "I still see arthritis, but if this patient is functioning well and his pain is manageable, there's no urgent need for surgery." That was 3 years ago. Robert still hasn't needed that hip replacement. He hikes with his grandchildren. He does resistance training 3 times a week now. He's added yoga for flexibility. He told me recently, "If I had just accepted that diagnosis and waited for surgery while resting my hips, I'd probably be recovering from my second hip replacement by now." One more quick story. Linda was 71, had arthritis in her hands and shoulders. She had stopped doing so many things she loved. She used to paint watercolors, but holding a brush had become too painful. She'd given up cooking elaborate meals because chopping vegetables and stirring pots aggravated her shoulder pain. When I suggested resistance training, she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, "Dr. Mitchell, I can barely hold a coffee cup some mornings. How am I going to lift weights?" But we worked with an occupational therapist who specialized in hand and upper body strength for seniors. Linda started with therapy putty, squeezing exercises, very light hand weights for shoulder exercises. The key was consistency and gradual progression. After 4 months, Linda's grip strength had increased by 42%. Her shoulder range of motion improved dramatically. She started painting again. She's back to cooking her famous Sunday dinners for her family. These aren't miracle stories. This is what happens when you give your body what it actually needs instead of following outdated advice based on a flawed understanding of how joints work. Now, let me ask you this. Have you tried resistance training before, or does the idea of it scare you because of your arthritis? Comment below and let me know. I want to address your specific concerns. Here's exactly what you need to do if you want to use resistance training to manage your arthritis. I'm going to give you a practical step-by-step protocol that you can start implementing this week. Step 1. Talk to your doctor. I need to say this clearly. Before you start any new exercise program, especially if you have arthritis or any other health condition, check with your physician. Make sure there are no specific contraindications for you personally. Most people with arthritis can safely do resistance training, but you need medical clearance first. Step 2. Find a qualified trainer or physical therapist who has experience working with older adults with arthritis. This is not the time to just watch YouTube videos and figure it out on your own. Proper form is absolutely critical. You need someone who can assess your current condition, identify any movement limitations or imbalances, and design a program specifically for you. Many physical therapists offer one-on-one sessions, and while it's an investment, it's worth every penny to learn how to do this correctly. Step 3. Start slow and be patient. You're not trying to become a bodybuilder. You're trying to build functional strength that supports your joints and reduces your pain. That takes time. In the research studies, most participants didn't see significant improvements until they'd been consistent for at least 8 to 12 weeks. Don't judge the program after 2 weeks. Give it time. Step 4. Focus on compound movements that work multiple muscle groups: squats, lunges, step-ups, deadlifts with appropriate weight, rows, chest presses, shoulder presses. These exercises build the kind of strength that translates to real-world function. You want to be able to get up from a chair, climb stairs, carry groceries, play with grandchildren. These movements train your body for those activities. Step 5. Use progressive overload. This is fancy fitness language for a simple concept. Gradually make it harder over time. When an exercise becomes easy at a certain weight, increase the weight slightly. When you can do 15 repetitions comfortably, add more weight so you're back to struggling with 8 to 10 repetitions. This progressive challenge is what triggers your muscles to adapt and grow stronger. Without it, you'll plateau and stop seeing benefits. Step 6. Train at least twice a week, ideally 3 times. The research is clear that consistency matters more than intensity. It's better to do moderate resistance training 3 times a week for 6 months than to do intense workouts sporadically. Your body needs regular stimulus to maintain and build muscle. Step 7. Listen to your body, but understand the difference between good discomfort and bad pain. Muscle fatigue and soreness the day after a workout is normal and expected. That's adaptation. Sharp pain during an exercise, pain that feels like it's in the joint itself rather than the muscle, or pain that persists for more than 48 hours after a workout is a sign something is wrong. You need to adjust your approach or consult your healthcare provider. Step 8. Don't abandon other beneficial activities. Resistance training should be the foundation of your arthritis management exercise program, but that doesn't mean you stop everything else. Walking is still great for cardiovascular health. Swimming and water aerobics can be wonderful for active recovery days. Yoga and stretching help maintain flexibility, but make resistance training your priority. Step 9. Track your progress. Keep a simple journal. Write down what exercises you did, how much weight you used, how many repetitions. Also, track your pain levels week by week, your ability to do daily activities, your energy levels. When you look back over 3 months and see concrete evidence of improvement, it's incredibly motivating to keep going. Step 10. Be prepared for initial soreness and don't let it discourage you. The first few weeks of starting resistance training, you're going to experience delayed onset muscle soreness. Your muscles aren't used to this stimulus. This soreness is temporary. It doesn't mean you're damaging yourself. It means your muscles are adapting. Stay consistent, and the soreness will diminish significantly after about 3 weeks. Here are the warning signs that you need to contact your doctor. If you experience sharp stabbing pain during exercise that doesn't resolve when you stop the movement, if you have significant swelling in a joint after a workout that doesn't go down within 24 hours, if you notice your joint is hot to the touch or red, if your pain is getting progressively worse week after week despite adjusting your exercise intensity, or if you develop new symptoms like numbness, tingling, or weakness that persists beyond the workout. Remember, arthritis is a chronic condition. You're not going to cure it with resistance training, but you can absolutely manage it, slow its progression, reduce your pain, maintain your independence, and keep doing the activities you love. The research is overwhelming on this point. People who maintain muscle strength around their arthritic joints have better outcomes, less pain, better function, and higher quality of life than those who don't. The tragedy is that so many people with arthritis are still being told to rest, to avoid stressing their joints, to accept their limitations. That advice is not just outdated, it's harmful. It accelerates muscle loss, which accelerates joint deterioration, which accelerates pain and disability. It's a downward spiral that could be avoided. I've been treating arthritis patients for over 2 decades, and I can tell you without hesitation that the patients who embrace resistance training, who push through the initial fear and discomfort, who commit to building strength rather than avoiding use, these are the patients who are still hiking at 80, still playing with their great-grandchildren, still living fully instead of being sidelined by their diagnosis. Your joints need movement. They need the right kind of stress to stay healthy. Your muscles need resistance to stay strong. Your body is designed to adapt and strengthen in response to challenge. Don't let fear or outdated advice rob you of your mobility and independence. If you found this information valuable, if it changed your perspective on how to manage your arthritis, do me a favor, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss future videos where I break down the latest research on healthy aging. Share this video with someone you know who has arthritis and might benefit from this information. Maybe it's a spouse, a friend, a sibling. This could change their life the way it changed Margaret's and Robert's and Linda's. Next week, I'm going to do a follow-up video showing you specific resistance training exercises that are particularly effective for knee arthritis, hip arthritis, and hand arthritis. I'll demonstrate proper form, talk about how to modify exercises if you have limitations, and address common mistakes people make when they're first starting out. Remember this, your diagnosis doesn't have to be your destiny. Arthritis is something you have, not who you are. You have more control over your outcome than you've been led to believe. The best time to start building the strength that will protect your joints was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week.